G'day everyone, and welcome along to another Toon podcast, the Southern Hemisphere's original and best Newcastle United podcast. And I think we're pretty close to being the biggest outside of the UK, if I'm right. So we're keeping ourselves growing as we go. So look, the new season's almost upon us. We're getting a bit excited. Football is just around the corner in terms of real action. After what was a pretty busy schedule so far, and we've still got a couple more games to go. So we've toured North America. Quite nice for us down here in the Southern Hemisphere in Australia because, well, they were like early morning kickoffs of a sensible time, so like 9 o'clock in the morning, and it was quite amusing watching everyone in the UK lose their shit over a midnight kickoff. But joining me today to go through what we're going to try and keep things going as a prediction pod for the new season, pre-season, kind of like just kick things off as we mean to go on for the season. Joining me today is Jack, Dimi, and Lee. So look, we are sort of really happy that the channel is growing. We're pretty impressed that our numbers on YouTube can continue to keep going up. So we're happy with that. The support that everyone gives us really does help us grow the channel. So please, if you do like what we do and you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. If you like the videos, hit the like button, subscribe, give us comments down below. And if you're on the audio platforms, please let us sort of know what you feel. Give us a 5-star review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. That would be awesome. So anyway, let's kick things off straight away. So I'm going to kick things off with a bit of an open question. We're going to try and keep this running relatively smoothly. I'm going to start with Jack just because he's literally in the top right-hand corner for me at the moment on YouTube. So I want to know, for the new season, what's the biggest thing that you specifically are hoping to see for the new season?
All right, I was thinking a bit about this. I'm going to give two things, one off the pitch and one on the pitch, but I'll keep it snappy. So Newcastle United is a crazy, crazy football club. I think it's going to be a big ask, this one, but I hope that off the pitch we can have some patience, we can have some calmness, we can give support to the club, what they're doing.
You haven't been following social media
from
for
the fan base,
have you?
Yeah. I know this isn't going to happen. It's unrealistic, but just to support what's going on, to try and stay calm if things go wrong, because I think there will be times this season when things don't run smoothly. We might have periods of games where we don't win for quite a while. I don't want to see anyone calling for Eddie Howe's head. I'm sure that is going to happen at some point, probably quite soon. I don't want to see the scapegoating that happens and the lambasting of certain players. I think that happens all the time, and it's disappointing. So it probably will happen, but I think players like Longstaff, Murphy proved people wrong last season. You know, they did well, so everyone deserves a chance in this team. And I just want everyone to stay united at the club and to understand that this is early doors in the project still. Peter Silverstone, I talk about this all the time, every time I'm on a podcast, but the finance guy, he said that in the True Faith podcast, that the club is going to be in a better position this time next season than it is now, regardless of where we finish in the table. So it's all about that growth, continued growth. I was talking to someone at the club this week, actually. There's so much work going on behind the scenes that is just unbelievable. Like, to try and catch up with the speed of progress of what's happened. So that's work's going to go on. The Champions League throws in a whole other aspect of things as well.
Yeah.
So I just want to try and things to stay calm, things to stay a bit balanced, and just to enjoy the ride. I think that last season was amazing. This season's going to be amazing too, I think, but there's going to be bumps, and we just need to all stay calm through that. On the pitch, quickly, I'm looking forward to seeing a whole season of Alexander Isak. I think he's phenomenal. I think he's world class already for us, and I think he could be the difference between us getting in that Champions League again, or winning a trophy and not winning a trophy. So a full season of him interacting with Harvey Barnes and Gordon and Bruno, I think that's going to be exciting to see. And a full season of him fit. He missed about a third of the season last season. So to have him fit for a whole season is going to be something special, I think. And that's what I'm really looking forward to seeing on the pitch.
Yeah, it's going to be nice to see. I mean, it's always nice to kind of look back on last season, but you kind of do wonder a full season of fit Alexander Isak and how many more points, how many extra games do we win that we just drew or something like that. So yeah, good to see. Dimi, over to you. What are your hopes for the new season?
Well, Jackie Boy just stole my main one. It was to see Isaac for the full season. We forget that he obviously did hit the ground running with that goal at Anfield, but I think he scored in that Bournemouth game, the one we all caught up in Sydney.
2 goals at Anfield.
Exactly. Hopefully, a full season of him would have been my first choice, because I think he's probably the best player that I've seen at Newcastle, technically all round, and just the things that he does on the football pitch I haven't seen in my lifetime. You guys probably a little bit older than me, but in my lifetime I haven't seen a player do as good as Shearer was, who was my hero and the reason I support this club. He can't do the things, or he couldn't do the things that Isaac can do, like that goal against Everton, even a couple of things he's done in pre-season, just shimming one way or another. He just glides on the pitch, and I can't wait to see a full season of Isaac. But the other thing I guess that I hope to see this year is further improvement throughout the squad. It could be asking for too much, but I do hope that we don't stagnate in terms of those players who have improved. I mean, Joe Linton's gone out of sight. I'd like to see him improve. Hopefully Miggy can keep his level or improve, and maybe there's a couple other ones there who could surprise us, and maybe some youngsters like we've seen Miley and Anderson in the preseason start to really come on. I'd really do like seeing improvement within the squad, because at least at this point we're not going to be splashing 300 million or 400 million each transfer window. So we need to develop as much as we can from within. And for me, I'd hope to see some more development and improvement from the existing players, and hopefully some young players coming in and making a real impact.
It's actually a really good point, though, because a lot of people are suggesting that last season, and this is really annoying me at the moment, is that everyone's suggesting last season was a bit of a fluke. We overachieved, we overperformed, and you kind of look at it and you think, what they're suggesting in terms of us being like regressing down and other teams catching us up kind of really depends on the likes of Miggy, Longstaff, all of these sorts of players who are probably not even going to be first choice this season because of the strengthening that we have done, with Gordon coming in, and obviously Tonali, Harvey Barnes has come in as well. It's relying on the likes of Miggy and those sorts of players not actually following up what they did last season. They don't even need to get better. They just need to be at the similar sorts of levels. And I don't even think they will. I don't think Eddie Howe lets his players rest on their laurels, and I don't think the players will, because there's so much competition for places. So, I mean, look, yeah, I really do think we will see some players push on again this season. It'll be interesting to see who continues to improve and who maybe doesn't react too well to not getting the game time. Lee, over to you. What are your hopes for the new season?
I like the sentiment from Jack, but I think it's going to be in vain. I think trying to hope for some sensibleness from the fan base. I think on the whole, you've obviously got a certain section that will just go Raj regardless of what happens. I kind of struggle to put this into words, but I kind of hope that we continue to be a threat. I hope we don't come a cropper with these new rules that they're bringing in about the added time on the end of the game.
The anti-Newcastle rules.
As much as we kind of laugh at the shithouse mags and all that kind of thing, there were plenty of times last season where we definitely pushed the envelope for what was kind of reasonable gamesmanship with the amount of time that we were, taking 3 minutes to kick the ball from Nick Pope.
But we aren't the only club that's done that, though.
No, absolutely not. But we, I just hope that with that extra time on the end thing, I hope we don't come a crop of that in a similar style to how we lost against Liverpool, in the last 9 seconds, because that's a real kind of hot. It just spits, it cuts you in half, and it goes into the next game sometimes as well. And I just hope we don't come a crop of that. I hope to see a lot of the youngins come through as well. I want to see Lewis Miley. I've got a bit of a taste for his style of football that we've seen in the preseason. He looks very promising, and I hope that he gets on the pitch a bit more this season. There's obviously still talk of him maybe he's going out and stuff, but Eddie made it pretty clear that he's going to stay where he is. It didn't say necessarily that he might get game time, but with all the competitions, I hope that we'll see more of him. Elliot Anderson, of course, as well. I want to see a bit more of him in the big games. Every chance he's had, he's looked all right, but I wonder if this season he's going to be the Miggy / Murphy, who did last year. So I'm hoping to see some of that as well. But on the whole, I just hope that we don't end up 15th and think, well, what the hell was last season then? I hope we continue to be at the top of the table, challenging and putting everyone's lip out.
Cool. Positive Lee back in the seat, as I can see. 15th, we're going to be doing something seriously wrong, I think. I think that one's that one's a safe one that you're not going to be disappointed with. So I've got another question here, which was the thing that you're looking forward to the most, which is kind of like crossing over with the last question as well. So I'm going to open it up. So if anyone's got anything else to add with that one, now's your time. Stick your hand up and we'll go.
I look forward to Dimi getting the prediction league wrong and not being top again. Going through the whole season thinking he's the Mystic Meg and then end up like 5th in the league or something. That's what I'm looking forward to the most this whole season.
We're keeping a spreadsheet this season.
Yeah, we are. But don't let facts get in the way in a good story. Keep going what you think. Yeah.
Well, I look forward to seeing you bleach your beard pink or something at the end of the season. It was good of you to volunteer yourself for that.
Yeah, it would be nice if we get some more random crazy bets from Craig that he ends up losing, and we beat someone 5-0 again for a bleached blonde hair moment.
With the preseason, I probably wouldn't have said this before the preseason, but just like Lee was saying, I had Anderson and Miley. There's nothing better than seeing young local players come through and impact the first team. Those two have basically just gone and saved us £50 million potentially, because we haven't got to go and buy James Maddison or somebody else, because Anderson and even Miley could play that role potentially. We've got 7 midfielders now instead of 5. So, it doesn't happen often with us, the academy players, because the academy's been shit for 3 decades or more. But you occasionally get someone like Andy Carroll come through. Obviously, Dummett's still there as well, and he's on the whole been a pretty good player for us, but he's coming to the end now. So to see someone, Longstaff's doing well, but to see someone like Miley, who, Jude Bellingham at 17 was playing for Dortmund and playing in the Champions League. So if he's good enough, he's old enough, and he's playing under the right coach as well, who's going to develop him. So Anderson's a bit further ahead in his development. He's 20, but the other thing about these players is they don't actually contribute to the 25-man squad as well. So that there's so many benefits to having them around the first team, and there's no reason why he would go out on loan at this stage. He's too young for one, and he's going to get all of his development he needs with us. So he obviously started at the end of the season. He came on against Chelsea, hit the bar. So to see a 17-year-old who's just turned 17 as well, by the way, impact the first team like this could be really exciting. Even if he's just coming on for 10, 15 minutes here and there, it's going to be exciting every time he comes on the pitch.
The beauty of that, though, is they both, like both Miley and Anderson, they both look so comfortable when they've had those chances to play. And I hold my hands up. I for some reason had Anderson as like 23 this year, and I thought this was going to be like the make or break season. And then I realized he was only 20, and I'm just like, holy crap, he's actually like got bags of space to develop still before we even need to worry about him like being a either a saleable asset or we need to try and offload him or something. But like the way he's started preseason, you got to think he's going to be very much in consideration for a lot of game time this season.
He was top of all the fitness tests as well, Anderson. He came back, and Eddie said that
he's jacked.
He's quicker. He looks jacked. He's quicker. He's stronger, and he's scored 4 goals and got 4 assists in pre-season. So amazing from him to put that work in over the summer as well.
Yeah, it's going to be great to see for the season. So I guess that leads us on to one of the questions I had for us, which was, I know I'm going to temper this with the fact that there is still time left in the transfer window. There is still a lot of talk of Livramento deals still on the table, and we're still pursuing that avenue. What, if any, are your squad concerns? I'll start with Lee. I'll go back around the other way. Lee, squad concerns at the moment, and where do you still want us to do some business? And I'm pretty sure most of it's going to be the same.
I said it on one of the previous pods. I'm still concerned with the lack of pace in the defense. The whole back line is slows out. Livramento might obviously help a little bit down one of the wings. Doesn't help in the middle. Botman's like size of a castle, and he's about as fast as a castle as well. And Shaw, he's never really been the fastest, and he's getting older. So I just feel like they can get turned a little bit too easy sometimes, and they don't have the pace to recover. So I worry about that. I worry about a bit of the actual general coverage in depth for those fullback positions. I think we all kind of worry about that as well. Hints that my boy Emil Kraft might be close to a return. So that will probably, although you never know where he is with his fitness or his match sharpness or anything like that, but that could ultimately solve an issue down the right. But then you've still got the left to sort out. And I don't think I want to see another season of Dan Burn being down the left, particularly not if you've got someone like Harvey Barnes in front of him who's looking for the ball and he wants to run, he wants to cut, he wants to pass. We need someone a little bit more proactive at the back there, and whether that's Matty Target or if it's someone new, I'm not sure to be honest. But I think there's a question mark around the left back position.
Were you impressed enough with Murphy in his preseason cameo to couple of games that he had to think maybe he could be that backup to someone like a Target?
We're talking about the young Murphy.
Yeah, 17-year-old.
I don't think you'd want to rely on someone with so little experience to come into the team in a Premier League season or Champions League season and expect him to do anything. So ideally, you wouldn't have him coming in. Not yet.
No, that's fair. Dimi, over to you. Your squad concerns?
For me, it's not a major concern, but I still think we need another striker in the squad, another number 9. I feel that we know at this point Callum Wilson's not going to give us 38 games, and even if he does, he's not going to be a starter if Isak is fit. So, and we saw Isak last year got injured as well, and he was out for 4 months. Not that he's injury prone or anything like that, or hopefully he has a full season, but we need to have, I think, a backup option. And I'm not saying like a Chris Wood or a Peter Crouch or just some long ball merchant coming off the bench, but I think we need to have another versatile forward, if not striker, to come in off the bench in those games, whether we're chasing goals or whether Isak is tired or Wilson is tired. We don't want to burn these boys out by February, March. Hopefully we're going to be in the Champions League in February and March, and we're going to be pushing in the knockout stages. So if we are, we're going to have stacks of games. So for me, I think we do need a backup option up there. I mean, they've tried Gordon up front, and I think he's done that a few times, and they seem to not mind that option. I'm not too convinced myself. I don't think he's a natural number 9, but no. I wouldn't be splashing cash for it, but I think on loan that could be one towards the end of the window that we do look at, and we might find some sort of, whether that's that similar bloke we looked at that Watford last time, João Pedro, who was a bit of a versatile striker, winger, midfielder type, maybe something like that who could complement the other two.
Do you not think exactly because of that reason, though, that he'll probably start Wilson and maybe keep Isak back, or start Isak and keep Wilson back, and then be able to swap the two and play Barnes down the left? And
he probably will do that. I don't think he's going to start Wilson and Isak with Isak being on the wing. I think Isak's going to be our centre forward, our number 9. But even so, two strikers for me still not enough in the squad. You need to have more than 2 strikers, because there could be injuries, there could be red cards, there could be any goddamn issue, and I don't want to be starting a Champions League game or a huge Premier League game with Anthony Gordon up front or Big Joe Linton. As good as he's been in the midfield, I don't want to be starting Joe Linton.
None of us want to see Joe Linton back up top on his own.
Let's not go that route again.
Like it's like we're away at the Bernabeu and Joe Linton's got to play up front because Isak's suspended and Wilson's injured. I don't want to see that.
Shawley's still on the books, and he's scored at the Bernabeu at the Nou Camp before, so yeah, maybe he could do a job.
I mean, James Turner-Cook's been having a few games pre-season, so I guess he's there. He doesn't take up a squad position, as Jack said before. So, there are some young players coming through from the academy that can probably fill in. But again, it's like you're not going to throw them into the Champions League sort of like knockout stages or anything like that if we get through to that. But we'll have to see what happens with that. I can't see us spending money on another forward. Certainly not in this window. So I think it's going to have to come from within. And I suspect that's definitely going to be Gordon. That'll be that versatile player. But again, you don't want to play him up front if he's actually playing really well on the wing, on the sort of on the right for us, and you sort of like upset that balance, and you would bring someone else in for him. So, Jack.
With the strikers, it's a problem Spurs have had for a lot of years, where Harry Kane's going to start every game. So who are you going to bring in as backup? Because that's good enough. Who's going to be happy to play second fiddle? They've been through all sorts of players, and like they know they're not going to start. So yeah, it'd be good for Wilson to have some rested a bit as well, and then he can come on like he was doing in April and scoring goals. So I think they probably will stick with what they've got, and the midfield and forward options look good now. I think if I was looking at the possible team for the Villa game, and the bench is going to look good, which it didn't last season. But you just have to look at the reaction when Fabian Schär went down for his knock that he got, or his little strain in the preseason. You're basically down to Jamal Lascelles after him. Lascelles has done all right in preseason. He didn't do too badly when he played last season, but I think we're in trouble if he's starting games, Champions League games, or big Premier League games. So yeah. I think that's got to be a priority to get a right-sided centre back, pacey like Lee said, who can be competition or backup for Fabian Schär. We're not going to have such a good run of injuries and suspensions probably as we did with the defence this season. I think a left back would be good as well, but I think if Livramento signs, he can play on the left or he can play on the right. So we've got Target, Burn, Livramento. Trippier can do it if he has to. If Manquillo stays around, he can do it potentially. And Murphy did do well. Alex Murphy did do well. He's got first team experience with Galway United as well before we signed him. So I think they're probably going to leave a big left back till next summer, and see how they go. It could cause problems. Byrne does struggle obviously against quick players, but I think on the whole he did well last season. He's a year older, but yeah, I think we need to get a centre back in pretty sharpish to get them bedded in and give that bit of competition and backup.
If we did end up getting Livramento and he was giving good performances on the right-hand side, would you consider playing Trippier, who's played on the left for England, and get him playing at left back instead?
Nah, Trippier is world class at right back. So I don't think you want to move your best player out of his best position, especially when he was such an important part of what we did for our attack last season. He started every game as well, and his minutes will have to be managed a bit more this season. But Livramento is sort of future-proof in the right-back position anyway, so he's going to be the long-term right-back. I don't think everyone realises how good he actually is. Like he was playing in the Premier League for Southampton at 18. He looked proper top quality. He's had a bad injury, but he's 20. He could be one of the best right-backs in the world in a year or two.
He looks like he's playing in slow motion when you watch these highlights, and you don't think he's very quick, but he is. He's just so in control of the ball.
Theo Walcott's played with him, and he said that he reminds him of Gareth Bale at that age. Wow. So, like, in the way he plays, you can see it a bit. And the way fullbacks are now, the kind of inverted thing they do where they go into the midfield, he looks like he's got the ability to do that. So I hope we sign him. But I do think we'll finish the transfer window probably feeling a little bit short, like we have in all of the previous transfer windows. And it's always worked out all right.
Out so far.
Yeah.
Worked out so far.
I think we'll be fine.
Cool. So I want to do some quick predictions before we go into our top sort of like the 4 competition predictions and what we're wanting from the whole season. So general prediction from everyone. Jack, top goal scorer for the season.
Top goal scorer.
It's going to be the same.
Yeah, top goal scorer. Well, last season there was Miggy for a time, wasn't there? Then it was Wilson, and Isak got over 10 as well. I think it'll be Isak if he stays fit. I think if he gets the centre forward position, and I've got a number. I think he's going to get 22 goals in all competitions. Put that on your spreadsheet, Dimi.
Dimi, who's your top goal scorer?
Yeah, I've got the big dog as well, Isak. I think he's going to be the top scorer. I think he's going to score 27 goals in all competitions this season.
Lee, hat-trick?
You boys are tripping. No, I'm going for Wilson. I don't know how you can go against the guy who got 18 goals last season. He's in the form of his life, by his own words. He's the fittest he's ever been, or at least fitter than he should be at his age, due to all the injuries. And amount of time he didn't play, so he's not quite got the mileage in the legs. I'm going to stick with my boy Wilson. I reckon he'll do it again.
How many goals?
Yeah, interesting.
20.
Very good. I'm going to stay out of this one. I'm just going to let you boys have your say.
Pussy.
I think Isak will be top goal scorer. If he stays fit, he's clearly going to get more games than Wilson. I would say Wilson is going to have an injury. I think we all know that. And if he doesn't, well, it's one of those things where you're happy to be proven wrong, because if he plays enough games, and he's he's basically guaranteeing you goals, and could well end up being quite a tight race. It's like, they maybe won't play together, but if you can get enough goals out of those two, then it's gone a long way to sort of re-securing Champions League again next season. So top assists we go on to. Dimi, you can go first with this one.
Top assists. I'm going to go for Harvey Barnes. I think he seems a bit more like the unselfish type, that he would square the ball close to goal than Gordon would be on the other side. Gordon, I reckon, might get the blinkers on and have a dig on his right or left. So I think Harvey Barnes is going to be owning that left wing position, and what he's already done for Leicester has been fantastic. I think he's going to have a great season for us, and I'm going to lock him in.
Cool. Lee?
Same for me. Barnesy. I know he didn't do much in the way of assists last season, but season before, I think he was right up there, wasn't he, with the assists? And across the last 4 seasons, I think, even as well. So Barnes for me.
Jack?
Last season was a bit of an anomaly for him with the assists. I think, like you said, he only got 2, but previous to that, like you said, he was getting good assists, and he's playing in a better team now as well. So, but I'm going to go for Gordon. I think it's going to be a big season for Anthony Gordon. He had a bit of a slow start. He wasn't fit. He'd been coached by Frank Lampard for a while. But I think with his versatility, he's going to play a lot of games, even if he doesn't start them. He's well suited to coming on when against tired legs, and he showed with his assist for Miggy in pre-season. You can play those balls from the middle as well. So if he's operating in central areas, he can play those through balls. And I think it's going to be a big season for him. So I think he's going to get 12 assists in all competitions. Into the spreadsheet.
I'm going to go, and I'm going to have a go on this one. I reckon Bruno will. I think with Tonali coming in, and you've kind of got that Longstaff Tonali kind of rotation in the middle, I suspect we will see Bruno getting up the pitch more. And I think that then puts him into dangerous areas for those little through balls for Isak and for Barnes. If Barnes can kind of work out those little 1-2s with a Bruno in midfield, like Bruno has done with Miggy and Trippier on the right, then I think Bruno could get into double figures with his assists this season. I'm going to go for 12 for Bruno. I think he will be the midfield maestro that we know he can be.
Assist numbers are funny because they're often lower than what you'd think, like the lower than goals numbers. So people don't often get all that many assists. It's funny no one's mentioned Willock as well. He's a little bit forgotten because he's been injured and he's going to.
He has been, yeah.
But after that assist he got against Spurs, like, he can do that, and he got a good one against Everton for Joe Linton as well. So, and for Miggy as well. So he can do it as well if he gets back in the team. Yeah,
there's very little love going in for Willock and Longstaff at the moment because of the names that have effectively come in above them. But they're both players that we were desperate to have back when they were out last season. Especially, I mean, we were all talking about Longstaff and how much we were missing him when he was injured, and now it's just like not even on the team sheet for most people. So, it's good that we're getting that depth in the squad anyway. So going on to the most improved player, and this is going to be pretty tough because there were so many last season that I think were kind of surprising all the fans, if not like just the Newcastle fans, but fans around the country as well. Jack, who's your most improved player for this coming season?
All right. Well, if it's Joe Linton again, he's going to be the best player in the world. So I don't think it'll be him again. We've already talked about him. I think based on pre-season, I think there's a good chance it could be Elliot Anderson. He made 27 appearances last season, but not many of them were starts. In the games he did start, he was a bit disappointing, but I think it was because he was in a weakened team as well then. So he's going to get a chance to play from the start. I think he should start against Villa. I don't see how he can't. And I think if he carries on like he has in pre-season, like Miggy did last season, then he's going to win it within the first few months of the season. I think that first goal for him is going to be special. He had the one ripped away from him against Forest, but if he gets one at St James's Park, it'll bring the house down. So I think he's the obvious candidate at this stage for most improved, just because he's got a high ceiling from a fairly low base from what he did last season.
Lee, over to you.
Yeah, I think Gordon actually.
Yeah.
I think he is set to have a massive season, given that he had a brilliant under 20. Was it under 21s?
Under 21 World Cup.
Yeah, he had a brilliant competition with England. All right, it's a different level, but nonetheless, I think he demonstrated why we were interested in him in the first place. Because before he got Lampard, he was actually when he played for Everton a season or two ago, he was actually really, really good. And I think when he first joined us, as you say, he'd been bruised by someone else, but the end result was the same. He was unfit. His mind as well. I don't think his mind was quite in the right place either. He'd been hounded out effectively by his own fans, and so you didn't get the best of him when he first joined us. But given the preseason that he's had with England, given that he was always a good player anyway, and now he's got better players around him, and the chance to show what he's got in the Champions League. I think Gordon's really the one to fly this season. He's the one to watch, I reckon.
Dimi, who's your tip for most improved?
I'm going to agree with Jack again. I think it's going to be Elliot Anderson. I'm really liking his preseason and his development. He showed flashes last season and that he was ready to take off, and he probably didn't get the chances that he was looking for. I remember the game he started against Liverpool and we were 2-0 down, and then Popey lost his marbles and he had to get substituted after 25 minutes. So that didn't work out well for him, but I think he's going to have a massive year. And to the point that I'll make another Nostradamus prediction just for Lee. And I reckon at some point this season, Elliot Anderson is going to be named in an extended England squad.
Wow, big call. That would be terrific for us. I think. So I saw on social media today that someone had posted, like in like the end of the year, we could have this like all 11 almost that could represent England if we needed to, and that's without going down the long staff and targets and stuff like that. I thought, oh yeah, Lee will be really impressed with that if that whole squad ends up on international duties. For my most improved. This is more something that I'm surprised none of us have actually mentioned so far. And it's more, I hope this improves than what I'm expecting it to happen. I want us to improve our corners and our set piece, like conversion rate, because we are dismal. We do not score from corners or set pieces. And with the likes of Trippier and with now Tonali on board as well, we've got a land of giants in the squad, and we're the worst team in the air when it comes to free kicks. So yeah, for me, I would love to see just a general team improvement in terms of like we get lots of corners, let's start and score from some of them, because that's how we break down these teams that want to do the low block defense against us and sit back deep, score from a set piece, because we're going to get plenty of them, and that solves that problem.
For the XG wankers out there, we actually had quite a high XG from corners. So we did actually have a high XG. So we were creating chances, but we just weren't putting them away. Big Dan Burns' 20 pence head was going all over the place. Botman didn't score.
6'7", and he's the worst.
He can't head the ball.
He cannot head the ball.
So it's conversion of the chances, yeah.
Conversion of the chances, yes.
Yeah.
But it is the perfect opportunity to unlock teams that are sitting deep, because if they're sitting deep, you're going to get more corners from them. So stick one of those in, they've got to come out, and then we can get them on the counter attack. So seems like something they should be working on preseason to me anyway. So without going over time, we want to try and keep this to a sensible time, this podcast. So let's dive into our expectations for the 4 competitions. I'm going to start off with the one that I think is probably at the forefront of everyone's minds, and that is the Champions League. Jack, I'm going to come to you first. Sort of, where do you see us finishing in the group stages? And what is your hope for the Champions League? Because obviously, if we finish top 2, we go through to the knockout stages. If we finish 4th, we go out of all the competition completely. If we finish 3rd, we drop into the Europa League, which is technically a winnable cup for us.
Yeah.
What's your tip, and what do you want from that competition for us, other than
Firstly,
money?
it still boggles my mind that we're actually in the Champions League. Like whenever you say Newcastle United are in the Champions League, and obviously that people have been getting the badge on the shirts and things, so I don't think it actually feels real until maybe the draw, which is
they've had the badge on their sleeve until they washed it the first time, and then
yeah. Or until that first game at St James's Park. Like, I don't think it'll feel real that we're actually in the Champions League until then. But I think we need to make a good account of ourselves, whatever that looks like. So we want to win some games. We've got a good chance of winning the home games. A lot of it will depend on the draw we get. There's different opinions about whether we want the easiest possible draw or whether we want the big teams. I think a mixture of that would be good. It will be a novelty again this season, like a bit like the cup final was last season. But like people at the club are constantly at pains to say, we don't want this to be a one-off. We want it to happen again and again. It might not happen again and again now because we're still, there's other teams that are going to improve. We're going to improve, I think, as well. But it's going to be a big, big ask to get in there again. I think we'll get through. It just depends on the group, but I can see us qualifying. And if we do get through, I can see us winning a knockout as well. So we could get to the quarterfinal of the Champions League, I think, which would be a fantastic outcome. But I think if we go 3rd as well, we drop into the Europa League, like you said, we've got a chance of winning the Europa League. We'd have a good chance of winning it, which would then get us back into win a trophy and get us back into the Champions League for the next season. So as long as we're not embarrassed, as long as we don't get no points or 1 point, and as long as we don't not win any of the 6 games, I think it would be good experience for everybody involved. And I hope it won't impact too much on the league form. But if it does, it does. It might well do. But just being there is going to be a novelty this season, and we can get that novelty out of the way. And then when we get back in there in future, it won't be a novelty anymore, and we'll be a serious top level European team.
You almost want the first game to be away just to get that hype out the way a little bit more before the home game. Because if the first game is at home at St James's Park, then the hype's going to be off the charts. So it's just going to be unbearable for like the week leading up to it. Just like that's all you're going to hear, and the players are going to end up getting a bit overwhelmed, I think. It is kind of, it's interesting that everyone's sort of saying that, no, we're in pot 4 and we're going to get like 3 really tough sides. You've got to be thinking, like, we're not a bad side. So you've got to be thinking some of those big teams are not going to want to get drawn against us because they're used to that 4th pot team being the, like the whipping boys of the group, and they can normally put them to bed with a reserve side out. They're not going to be able to do that against us. So I think, like, as much as we don't want to get like a team, like 3 teams that are all, top of their game, other teams are not going to want to get us either. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the draw, at least. Anyway, Dimi, what's your hopes for the Champions League, other than just like watching the games and loving it every second of it?
I think we can get through the group stage. I don't really fear anyone else in the Champions League besides maybe probably 3 teams, and 2 of those teams are in the Premier League, so we're not going to be playing them in the group stage. So that's handy for us. So I think we can definitely qualify out of the group stage, and probably, like Jack said, I think we can win a knockout game. I wouldn't put it past us. I mean, this is going to sound stupid because we're probably not going to do this, but I wouldn't put it past us getting through to a semi-final. I look at last year, AC Milan were not a great team, and to be fair, neither were Inter Milan. Both of those teams made a semi-final, and it doesn't take much to get there. If you get a good draw, you might draw a couple of teams who may have been lucky themselves or who may have a bad game, and you can get through. So there's always one team who unexpectedly makes a semi-final, or sometimes there's 2, and I'm gonna hope it's us this season, but I'm not gonna expect semi-final. I think out of the group stage is a reasonable expectation, and with a bit of luck, I reckon we could sneak our way into the final 4.
Lee, do you see kind of going out of the group stages and then getting knocked out at the first hurdle as something that would probably tick a box in terms of, well, it's been a successful group stage, but now we don't have to worry about any extra games, and we can concentrate on like the Premier League form? Or do you just want to go as far as we can in like every competition this season? And we'll get on to the others in a minute.
Look, I mean, yeah, but it's a bonus being in the Champions League. It's well before we were expecting to be there. We don't know the pots. We don't know who we're going to be facing. That's exactly right. I think all you can hope for now, and Jack mentioned it, is to not get embarrassed. Give a good account of yourself, however that looks. If you don't get through the groups, I don't think it really matters. The fact is that you're there. You've played. There's a guaranteed amount of games, isn't there? There's 6 games or something.
6 games.
Yeah.
6 games that we're guaranteed to play in Europe. Either way you look at it, the Premier League is and always will be the main bread and butter of every team, I suppose. And that one has to take priority. So all the other cup competitions, including the Champions League, are great if you get to a certain, way down the line. But if you go out of them, it means you can concentrate a little bit more on the Premier League. So for me, I don't think it really matters. It's almost like a free hit. I know Eddie Howe doesn't like saying free hits, but it's kind of like one of those experiences type things where you get more from just being there than actually the expectation of doing particularly well in the competition. And it's important, I think, to get there next season and the season after and the season after. That's what really matters. So I'm not concerned about what happens in the Champions League, to be honest. I'm just thrilled, absolutely thrilled that we're there.
That's fair. In terms of the 2 cup competitions, let's do those together. League Cup, FA Cup. Lee, lead us off. Where do you see us going in both of those cup competitions? Because let's be fair, we don't have a great track record in getting out of like the first round of the FA Cup that we're qualifying for.
Yeah, I was going to say FA Cup 3rd round. No, actually, I was being generous. 4th round for the FA Cup. I just don't think it really matters to anybody anymore. Not as much as it used to. And likewise, the League Cup. But the thing about the League Cup is you can get to the final in the space of, 5 games or something? So in a strange kind of way, if you're interested in winning a pot, then League Cup is the quickest route to do that, and probably the easiest as well. So I think probably we'll get to the quarters in the League Cup. I just wrote down quarterfinals. I'm not sure we'll get to the final. FA Cup 4th round because we just suck at the FA Cup. And then, who knows? Maybe we can concentrate on the league and the Champions League. That wouldn't be such a bad result in the end.
Yeah. No, probably wouldn't be. Dimi, where are you seeing us in the 2 domestic cups?
So the League Cup, I think, will tank and play young kids because it's going to fall, or play the secondary 11 because it's going to fall at the start of the Champions League group stages, and the Champions League and the Premier League take absolute priority over the League Cup. And most teams have got the squad to sort of play their reserves up until the quarterfinals or even the semi-finals. We don't have that luxury, so I'm happy enough to let the League Cup go. We had a good run last year and just missed out in the final. I'm happy to let that go. But the FA Cup, I really do want to have a crack at because obviously we've been rubbish in the FA Cup for a long time, and we've had that taste of Wembley now, and I really feel we can have a good crack at the FA Cup. Whether we can get to the final or not, I'm not sure, but I think we can make a semi-final and at least get to Wembley again. And if we do get to Wembley again, hopefully we can go one step further or actually 2 steps further and win twice at Wembley. That would be ideal. But I think FA Cup definitely we will take seriously this year and try and make a bit more of a run than we did last year against Sheffield Wednesday.
How do you see it going, Jack?
Yeah, it's quite hard with the domestic cup competitions because it depends on the draw. You could get Man City away in the first round, even though we beat them in the League Cup a few years ago. But it doesn't really, I don't really care that much about them until you get to the quarterfinal, and then that's when you can start thinking and getting excited about them. The League Cup took a bit away from the league last season. I don't care what anyone says. It did distract them a bit, and I think Eddie's come out and said that in the end. So there's going to be a lot of distractions. Excuse my dishwasher. That's just tingling away. That was why I was on mute before. I was waiting for it to happen.
I thought you understood.
So if we get to the a quarterfinal, I think we'll get to a quarterfinal of one of them. I think we'll probably just tank in the other one. I don't know which way around it will be. We'll play one less game in the League Cup this season because we're enter at a later stage because we're good again. That's one of the advantages of being good. Yeah, enter the League Cup at a later stage. But I think obviously winning a trophy would be amazing, but you don't start thinking about that until you're at the kind of quarterfinal stage. I think it'll be used for squad rotation and to give minutes to fringe players, and I think that's right. I think that's the way it should be when you're in 4 competitions.
No, that's
so
fair enough.
It's hard to predict. We'll just see what happens with them.
Right then, so the $1 million question is what's happening in the Premier League? The big money on offer, the big prizes. Look, there's talk that we could potentially look at 5 places for the Champions League next season as well. So, that obviously increases the likelihood of teams, even if like you do get a Liverpool or a Chelsea or even an Aston Villa that push up further, you've still got an extra place on offer. You've got an extra European spot on offer, full stop. So realistically, leading into the season, there's a lot of people writing us off in terms of being able to maintain that position. We're apparently going to go backwards while the likes of, like all the Man United and Liverpool and Chelsea and Aston Villa and Brighton, they're all going to keep on improving. I'm not seeing exactly why that's the case. And I don't know why, given, we're not losing a lot of our top players. We're actually adding to the depth of our squad, and we've got these young players coming through. I just don't get the bias in the media. But hey, who am I to argue with all of these so-called experts? Dimi, I'm going to go to you first. Your passion aside for 1 second, where do you see us finishing in the Premier League this season?
Are you saying I'm not objective in my predictions?
Your words.
Look, it's gonna be a tough season. Everyone knows that. It's Liverpool, Chelsea, even Spurs with Ange are gonna have better seasons, and it's gonna be a massive ask for us to maintain the levels. We've maintained it for 18 months, but to maintain it for another 8 months, especially when we've got Champions League high quality football to play as well. So I think for us, a top 6 finish would be fantastic for us to maintain our status amongst the so-called upper echelon in the Premier League. And I think we can even finish 5th. And I reckon with the new Champions League rules, we might backdoor into the Champions League. So I reckon 5th is where we're going to finish. And I think that's a reasonable expectation to say, look, we're going to maintain our position, but potentially not challenge the top 2, whether that's going to be Man City and Arsenal or whoever else that's going to be. I think we are good enough to maintain our spot 4th, 5th, 6th. I'm going to go 5th, but I reckon around that position.
See, this is the thing, though. Like, you look at how many points we left on the table last season, and you put a fit at Isak into that squad. You've got some goals and assists coming from Harvey Barnes. You've got a Sandro Tonali sitting in midfield now. The goals were what let us down last season. So I expect our defense to leak more goals than they did last season. But I also expect us to score more goals. And if we can convert, we had like a really bad record against the teams in the bottom half. So if you can start putting those teams away because you've got those extra goals at your disposal, because those teams are sitting back trying to like just play for a point, to me, I think we'll probably be quite surprising package this season. Lee, what do you think for the Premier League?
It's a good point about that, Mark. I mean, I think if we can convert 30-40% of those draws that we had into wins, then that puts us in a really healthy position. But I have the feeling that it's going to be probably the most competitive. I mean, they say this every season, but I feel like it's going to be the most competitive it's been in a long, long time. You've got the likes of Villa, Brighton, Spurs. I'm not too sure about, because if they lose Harry Kane, yeah, what do they look like after that? Without him last season, they probably, God knows where they would have ended up. And then, of course, you've got Liverpool who've improved their squad. You've always got Man United. Chelsea's improving their squad, as they always do, by everybody that exists. You've got Arsenal, who will continue, I'm sure. You've got City. So I think it's going to be very, very competitive top 8, let's say. And I'm being generous by including Spurs in that. But I think I agree with Dimi for possibly the first time ever that I think definitely top 8.
Make a note of the date.
Yeah, take a screenshot. I think the top 8 is definitely almost locked in unless something goes absolutely horrendously wrong. I think top 8 certainly, but I think we'll be pushing for that at least 5th place, and it's important if we can to get into the Champions League, as I've already said. So I think between 6th, 5th, and if one of those teams above us typically, has a shit season, we could even go higher. But it's, as Bobby Robson said, it's easy to jump from 10th or 15th to 8th, but it's every position from that point onwards is really, really difficult to improve upon each season. And we finished 4th, so it'll be an almighty effort to get 3rd. So I think probably most likely 5th, 6th, something like that.
Fair enough. Do you agree with that, Jack?
Yeah, pretty much. I think it's, instead of looking at other teams, it's good to look at what we did points-wise last season as well. So we got 71 points, which was good enough, obviously, for 4th last season. I think if we can get, with the Champions League and everything else, if we can get within 5 points of that, so around the 66 to 67, would probably be classed as another successful season. I think that's the kind of trajectory the club thought they'd be on, more likely than finishing 4th last season like we did. But having said that, we did draw a lot of games we should have won. We barely lost any games. There was a couple we could have lost that we drew, but you want to be looking at progress. So you want to be looking at getting more than 71 points, which would be a huge ask. But I don't see why we can't do it, especially if we get some defensive cover in as well. I think Villa and Brighton are going to be dangerous. But like you said, I think it was you that said this, Lee. People say this every season. Oh, so-and-so's good. Everyone's strengthening. And in reality, that isn't what happens. I think Liverpool will be a lot better because they were terrible at the start of last season. I don't think Man U were impressive at all last season. I'm not worried about Man United.
They had a purple patch.
Yeah, I don't think that. I just don't think they're that good, compared to other teams. And just teams generally start quite slow as well before picking up. So Spurs might have a bit of a bad start. But I think if we just focus on ourselves, no one's going to want to come to St James's Park. No. It's going to be rocking again. So I think anything around 5th would be seen as a success. I think we don't want to drop lower than the Europa League. We definitely don't want to go into the Conference League or lower than that, because I think we're good enough now for a Europa League spot. So I'd be happy with finishing in a Europa League spot with more signs of progress. The club will be in a stronger position next summer, regardless of what competition we're in, because we'll have more sponsorship deals and all that sort of stuff. So I think as long as we keep that trajectory, and as long as, like I said before, as long as everyone stays calm when things don't go right, when we have a bit of a bumpy spell, which we will, and we've got the right manager for that anyway, because he's going to make sure everyone keeps their feet on the ground and no one at the club's going to panic about things. So yeah, if we can do that as fans as well, that would be good. It won't happen, but yeah, anything around 5th, 6th would be good, and I think we're more than capable of that.
Certainly the start of the season we have is going to be a bit of a litmus test of how good we can be. We need a quick start. We've literally playing, the first 6 games are against 6 teams in the top 8 teams that we're literally just talking about. So it's going to be a bit of a baptism of fire, so to speak, for that first bit of the season. How we do in those games, I think, is going to dictate a lot of the rest of our season. If we can come out of those games with, 10, 12 points, I'd say we'll tick that off as job well done. Now let's get on to the easier games on paper and actually start to get some more points on the board. To me, it's interesting where, as fans, we're constantly talking about Eddie Howe, and he's improving all these players constantly, and he's getting the most out of them. But then we're sitting there here going, well, yeah, but we're in the Champions League, so therefore we probably aren't going to finish as high. And it's this dichotomy of this fan mindset at the moment where, we finished 4th under Sir Bobby Robson. You can't tell me that the next season, when we finished 3rd, that nobody else was strengthening and we had extra games. So it doesn't necessarily follow suit that we can't still continue to improve. It's going to be a case of how we perform on the day against every team that we come up against. And that Eddie Howe's going to have everyone prepped. He's going to have everyone sort of focused on the game. And in reality, if the players are getting a taste of Champions League football, that should be all they need to spur them on to say, well, hang on a bit, this is actually really good. We want some more of this. Let's push on in the league and make sure we can do this again next season. And I think we've got the right mentality players at the club at the moment to actually do that as well. So it'll be interesting to see. Look, last thing before we go, we'll call it in a minute, but quickly as you can, so that Dimi can go off for his sausage and garlic bread. We want to see what makes a successful season for us. I'm going to start this off. I would say top 6, a decent cup run, and qualifying for the knockout stage of the Champions League for me is absolutely dream scenario for us. Jack, what do you reckon?
Successful season, I think. Like I said, getting in the Europa League spaces would be success in the league. Getting out of the Champions League group or finishing 3rd and then going far in the Europa League, and just general sense of progress. Players doing better. Eddie Howe getting experience in managing in Europe, and everybody just being positive come the end of the season that the club's on the right track, which it definitely is going to be. So that's going to be a success for me. And I'm just excited for it all to start again and to see it feels like a long, long time ago since that Chelsea game, which no one cared about anyway. So it's going to be very exciting next 2:30 in the morning next Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm not looking forward to the sleep deprivation that's going to happen because of the stupid kickoff times. Everything's moved for TV for those first 6 games. We are not getting any sleep, guys. So, Lee, your successful season benchmark?
Getting some sleep. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? No, I think getting back in the Champions League, I think that would be a success, because then you're at the top of the Premier League, near enough, let's say 5th, and you've managed to get back into the best competition in Europe. And that means lots of money again, and that means you can attract certain types of players. And I think that'll be a measure of success for me next season. A bonus would be to do well in the cups, but I don't really care that much about them. I struggle too much to care about these sort of things. Like Jack said, until it gets to the end and you're thinking, bloody hell, I might win this. And most of the time I'm like, whatever. So it'd be a bonus to do well in the cups, but I think top end of the table and back into the Champions League for me.
Dimi finishes off.
I think top 6 and getting out of the group stage of the Champions League would be a fantastic season. Obviously, you want to qualify again for the Champions League, but top 6, and if we give a good account of ourselves in the Champions League, that'd be a fantastic season.
No, couldn't agree more. It's dampening those expectations down. We've exceeded all expectations for the last couple of seasons, really, under Eddie Howe. So I don't see any reason why it shouldn't continue going. But I think it's nice as fans just to kind of enter into the season with realistic expectations of what we should be looking for. And I think top 6, I think if we finish 6th, getting another European adventure the season after, then that's all we can really be asking for. I personally just want us to win a cup. That's all I want. I don't really care which one. I don't care what cup it is. I don't care about the cups necessarily. I just want us to win some silverware. It's long overdue. It gets a lot of pressure off the team, a lot of pressure off the manager, the players, and just lets the fans start to actually enjoy these successful runs rather than actually getting a little bit overhyped about it all. Right then, we shall call it there. It's been a really good fun talk tonight. Looking forward to the new season. And we'll kick things off. Now, we've got one last piece of business to attend to, and that is the winner of our shirt giveaway competition from our YouTube, and it is dun, 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 Very nice. Marcus Didius is our winner of the shirt competition. We pulled that number out the hat, so congratulations to him. Big fan of the podcast as well. We can guarantee you there was no shenanigans and funny business going on with picking a favorite of the pod, but he's now going to be in sort of control of what shirt he gets and what number and name he gets on it. So yeah, congratulations, mate, and we'll be in touch to sort those details out. So to everyone else, thank you for watching. Thanks for listening on the audio, and let us know what your predictions are for the coming season. So thanks very much to Jack, Lee, and Dimi. It's been a pleasure, guys, and we will sign off there. Cheers.
Thanks, mate.
Matt.
Thank you.
Cheers.